Hey, today I'd like to talk about a very important topic in the craft of acting. The topic is preparation. For those that aren't familiar with what that is, preparation, Sanford Meisner once said, is like the choke on a cold engine on a cold day. It's the warming up of an engine on a cold day. As an actor, for the actor, it's the warming up of the engine before they have to quote unquote begin. Whether it's a take in a film or walking on stage, it's having the right river going, right? A good visual, a good example of that is if I were to ask you your name and holding a check for $1 million on a big marquee because you won some lottery deal, and I said, "What's your name?" and your name's on the check, you'd scream your name with joy, right? Because you've got that kind of river going. And then if I asked you your name because, I'm a cop at the door and I've got a solemn look on my face, it would produce a different state in you. So that's an example of, although it's instantaneous, preparation, the value of it, how our inner life will change the meaning of the words. Same name, completely different meaning as the text floats on the inner river called our inner life. Preparation first really was introduced to this country by Stanislavski, and that topic, of course, became known throughout the method as emotional memory, the process of getting in touch with memories from your past that are still charged. And in so doing, you would, by having a focused, deliberate connection, recalling of that memory, that the feelings that are associated to that memory would come to life. And this is can work in any form, right? In other words, any discipline. Sanford Meisner once said, whatever works, use it. In the Meisner Technique, there's a misconception out there that you can't prepare on things from your past. That's complete and utter bullshit. You absolutely can. And Sandy's supported it as long as it was healthy. Sandy's was early in his teaching career was opposed to emotional memory because he was subjected to it in a very autocratic, what's the right word? Unwielding, is that the right word? Just very autocratic, dogmatic approach of just, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. And it was presented by Lee Strasberg, the elder statesman of the group theater, who had been introduced to it by Stanislavski, as they all had. And Sandy said, look, this is unhealthy. He wasn't the only one. The group revolted, and eventually Lee quit over this topic, preparation, because Sandy said actors are not emotional guinea pigs to be dissected by amateur psychologists. And what he meant was acting teachers, directors trying to stir them up and stir up their stuff. Can you prepare on the wounds and scars and highs and lows of your past? Sandy was asked. Yes, of course, whatever works, as long as you're healthy about it. But you don't need a screwed up life to be an actor, was Sandy's other teaching. He also said, hey, for many people, who wants to remember how much this trauma, who wants to relive this trauma night after night after night? And by the way, if you keep reliving it, after a while, it does go flat. So you do need your imagination to revitalize it, to activate it, to stimulate it more, because it's going to go flat. But most importantly, Sandy was a huge proponent that we are healthy, that we're not this tortured artist all bottled up with stuff not processed. He felt that was a recipe for somebody that's just going to burn out. Instead, he wanted us to have what he believed to be the most important quality for an actor, a childlike imagination, a developed imagination, because as he said, with a developed imagination, there's just about no place you can't go. So in our preparation, what's preparation? Well, in the Meisner technique, I've already explained what he said. Hey, look, if you want to prepare on something from your past, something that happened last week that you can be healthy about, knock yourself out. But, preparation can also really create some problems. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Because no matter what you prepare on, it shouldn't be something that is hard to shake after the take's over or the scene's over. It should never be that way. If it is, then you shouldn't be going there. The sad numbers about women on the planet in terms of sexual harassment Get 10 women in a room, it's over 70% have been sexually abused, sexually harassed in their lifetime. And they say the other 30%, numbers high there too, they just don't want to be talking about it. So one would be too many, 1%, one person out of those 10, but the numbers are unfortunately very high. And for some women, they're dealing with that in therapy and in a myriad of different ways. What happened to them was so traumatizing. Shit, man, they should never go near that. And I'm just using that as an example. We all have our stuff. I went through a horrible breakup a while ago. It's a while back. And thank God. And, I remember thinking, well, I could prepare on this if I wanted to feel like hell, if I wanted to be angry, if I wanted to be just really heartbroken and bummed and whatever. If I just want to stir that pot, I could, but I didn't want to go there. I was in therapy trying to heal that shit. The last thing in the world I wanted to do was pick at that scab. So I was healthy enough to know, look, I'm trying to crawl across this river of my personal life where I've been drowning in with barbed wire tied around me, called this unhealthy relationship. I'm trying to get to the other side to the bank, to get myself, to the side, to stand up, to begin running in the opposite direction of this dysfunctional relationship. And so the last thing in the world I wanted to do and knew was healthy to do was be to prepare on this. I'm trying to heal this shit. So there's a good example of something to not prepare on. Back to the women example, there's some women, I work so much with so many different students and over the years have been told, look, I actually wanted to prepare on something that happened way back in the day. I do. I've gone through enough therapy. I've been able to turn it into something very positive for me. This is them talking. And I'm healthy about it. But there's still fire there, but it's healthy fire. I can use it. So there's really the key teaching there in using, again, the reality of your life. But the purity of the Meisner technique is with a developed imagination, there's just about no place you can't go. One time I do one of my shows where I have to walk on stage. It's the Vincent show where I'll have to walk on stage devastated. Now I can prepare on the literal circumstances, but you do show night after night after night, and sometimes you do have to revitalize it. This was in, I don't know what the hell the year was. I don't know what it would be. You can do the math, but whenever it was that Obama was being sworn in our country. I was in London with my daughter, watching a TV set. It was surreal to be in another country watching a transition of power happening, especially at a time when the country was just so divided. This is Bush and Obama back then. And I remember standing there just going, here's a black man being elected president, and I come from the 60s and watching Martin Luther King assassinated, Bobby Kennedy assassinated, John F. Kennedy assassinated. I'm like, dude, stay in the White House for 4 years, please. Don't come outside because, there's just somebody out there, some bigoted asshole is gonna just for their moment of fame or whatever you want to call it, it's gonna take you out. And that was my thought while watching him accept the presidency. And that night when I went and did my show, it was rich, that whole thing. It just wouldn't go away. And I was backstage getting ready to prepare on what I usually prepare on. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna try this. So what I prepared on him was like I was a Secret Service guy. Here's Obama, and I was standing right behind him. And in my imagination, because I'm having a deliberate daydream, that's what preparation is, a deliberate daydream. We do it all the time. Our mind starts thinking about something. A car goes by, it's the same car as our ex, right? And all of a sudden we start thinking about him and thinking about, this. And the more charged the thought, the more we'll fixate on it, the more we'll grind on it. The longer we grind on it, the more it creates a state. That's what creates anxiety and stress and depression and the highs and lows of the human experience, our ability to have our mind transported that way, right? So I decided this night that I was going to have a deliberate daydream on Obama getting shot. Not because I wanted that at all, but because of how much I knew that would upset me. And in my deliberate daydream, that's sure as hell what happened. I mean, I'm literally, boom, and I'm standing right behind him. I'm the first person to him. His kids are screaming, his wife's screaming, and I'm just broken. I'm just started bawling and trying to help him, trying to keep the kids, take care of the kids. And then, 2 minutes later, I walk on stage as Vincent's brother, devastated. Now, again, there's more to this because I can't just walk on stage having been Obama's Secret Service and somehow I'm Vincent's brother. Instead, what you have to do is, that's just to get the river going. And as soon as that river was going, I just let go of being Obama's bodyguard, whatever, Secret Service guy, and then fell into well, it's like opening a door and now stepping into this room. And this room is now the literal circumstances of what's about to happen. So preparation, there's an example of getting the motor going. One more time, it's like we do it all the time. Our mind is constantly thinking about things. And as I said, if there's a wound in there or a charged thought or something that just happened with our boss or an employee or, then our mind will stay with it. Because our mind's usually just jumping all over the place. They guesstimate we have 60,000 thoughts a day. Holy hell, hang on. But most of our thoughts are about the future or the past, and most often they're pretty much about the same stuff every day over and over. Variations, but you get the idea. But again, the more charged it is, the longer we'll stay with it, the more of an emotional state it will create. So preparation is deliberate daydreaming. It's going back and locking and loading. And if I have to do a scene where you're my brother who's had an affair with my wife, and I've just found out, and it's the scene where I'm coming to the door, my brother's house, to confront him. Look, man, it ain't a comedy or a musical. I'm ready to kill, right? Or maybe I'm heartbroken, depending on what the writer, director have, whatever emotional note they're looking for. But I can deliver it. I can get it. I can go fall into that river. I can go jump into that river through having a daydream, a deliberate daydream about either the literal circumstances or whatever I want, and then layering in the literal circumstances. But regardless, and this is really the focus I want to make, because there's so much more to this topic of preparation. Today's video, today's teaching, is about being healthy about it, because it should never, and I mean ever, be hard to shake. It should never be something that haunts you afterwards. It's tough to shake, because if it is, you're not ready to go there, and maybe someday, maybe you never should. Maybe someday, but maybe you never should. I can think of so many stories of students who, in the training, you get to know them so well, and they talk a lot as things start to open up and trust builds, etc., about just some really shitty stuff that happened when they were little kids. And I remember there's one, I won't say any names, but I'll never forget this. He was talking about why he's so shut down, his instrument's so shut down. Especially when there's conflict, and in acting there's lots of conflict. And he had trouble. As soon as conflict happened, he shut down, disassociated. And I said, can you help me? If you're comfortable talking about it. He goes, yeah, I know exactly when it happened. I was 7, my little brother was 5, my parents were screaming at the dinner table again. And this time it was worse than ever. They were saying stuff, and the way it was scaring us. And my little brother started crying, and I looked at him going, and he got underneath the table, and I went underneath the table, and we held each other underneath the table. I mean, picture that one. And as above them, their 2 caretakers are going at it. And he says, then the next thing I remember was the next morning in pitch black, pulling out of the driveway in a station wagon, never saw my father again. And he was not comfortable ever preparing on that. And he'd been to therapy a lot about it. And he just didn't want to go there. No shit. I don't blame you. So be healthy. It's all make-believe, as Sandy said. Here's a good Sandyism. It's a play. Play. It should never, ever, 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 ever be hard to come out of a preparation or a work that you just did. And if it is, and if it did, it's work you shouldn't be working on. I hope that helps. Okay? See you soon.